There is a particular kind of silence that exists only in forests, not the silence of an empty room, or the silence of a deserted street. A living silence, full of the sound of wind moving through canopies, of water finding its way between roots, of birds and insects, and the slow, patient breathing of trees that have been standing in the same place for longer than any human being has been alive. Step into a great forest, a truly great forest, one of the ancient ones, one of the vast ones, and something happens to you almost immediately. Your breathing slows, your shoulders drop, the particular noise of the ordinary world, the noise that you carry with you everywhere, that you have stopped noticing, falls away, and what remains is something very simple, very old, and very necessary. Today, we are going to take you inside the most beautiful forests in the world, the ones that will stop you, the ones that will quiet you, the ones that will remind you of something you had forgotten. Let's begin in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, because the Pacific Northwest contains one of the most extraordinary temperate rainforest ecosystems on Earth. The Hoh Rainforest in Olympic National Park, Washington. The Hoh Rainforest receives between 12 and 14 feet of rainfall every year, making it one of the wettest places in the continental United States. And that extraordinary rainfall has produced a forest of such density, such greenness, such overwhelming biological richness that stepping into it, for the first time, feels like stepping into another world entirely. The trees are enormous: Sitka spruce and western red cedar and bygolf maple, some of them over 300 feet tall, some of them over 1,000 years old, their trunks so wide that it would take 4 or 5 people with arms outstretched to encircle them. And every surface of every tree, every branch, every fallen log, every rock on the forest floor, is covered in a thick, brilliant, almost luminous green moss that gives the Hoh its most distinctive quality, the sense that the forest itself is alive in every possible dimension, from the highest canopy to the very ground beneath your feet. The light in the Hoh Rainforest is unlike the light anywhere else. It filters down through multiple layers of canopy, first the towering upper story of the great trees, then the mid-story of vine maple and red alder, then the ferns and mosses of the forest floor, and by the time it reaches you, it has been transformed into something green and diffuse and extraordinary. Not dark, exactly, but soft, filtered, as though the forest is generating its own light from within. The Hoh is also one of the quietest places in the United States, and that quiet is something that researchers have actually studied and measured. The ambient sound level in the Hoh Rainforest, away from the river and the trails, is among the lowest recorded anywhere in the lower 48 states. Standing in that quiet, with the moss absorbing sound from every direction, and the only sounds the distant river, and the occasional call of a winter wren far up in the canopy, is one of the most genuinely restorative experiences that the American outdoors has to offer. From the Pacific Northwest, let's travel to a forest that is older than almost anything else on Earth. The Daintree Rainforest in Queensland, Australia. The Daintree is the oldest tropical rainforest in the world, approximately 180 million years old, which means it was already ancient when the dinosaurs walked beneath its canopy. It covers approximately 1,200 square kilometers of the wet tropics of northeastern Queensland, and it is so biologically diverse, so extraordinarily rich in species found nowhere else on Earth, that it has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Daintree contains plants and animals that are the direct descendants of the species that existed on the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana, living connections to a world that existed before Australia broke away and drifted to its current position on the globe. Walking through the Daintree is a genuinely extraordinary experience. The vegetation is so dense, so layered, so various, that it feels almost architectural, as though the forest has been deliberately designed to use every possible level of space and light. Ancient ferns that have existed essentially unchanged for millions of years grow in the shade of towering trees. Orchids and bromeliads cling to branches high above the forest floor. Cassowaries, enormous, prehistoric-looking birds that stand as tall as a human being and are among the most extraordinary creatures in the Australian wilderness, move through the undergrowth with a dignity and a presence that is genuinely startling. And the sound of the Daintree, the extraordinary, multi-layered, constant sound of insects and birds and water, all of it overlapping and interweaving in a composition of biological complexity, is one of the most remarkable auditory experiences available anywhere in the natural world. Now let's travel to a forest that offers something completely different, a forest defined not by its density, but by its space, its scale, and the particular quality of light it produces. The Black Forest of Germany. The Schwarzwald, the Black Forest, covers approximately 6,000 square kilometers of southwestern Germany, rising from the Rhine plain in the west to a high plateau of dark, dense coniferous forest. The name comes from the dark canopy of the spruce and fir trees that cover the higher elevations, a canopy so dense that sunlight barely penetrates it, creating an almost permanent twilight beneath the trees that has given this forest its distinctive, slightly mysterious character. But the Black Forest is not all darkness. The valleys between the wooded ridges contain meadows of extraordinary beauty, green and flowered in summer, deep with snow in winter, and the streams that run through them are cold, and clear and full of trout. The small villages that dot the region, with their distinctive architecture of deep-eaved farmhouses and flower-filled window boxes, seem to belong to the landscape rather than to have been imposed upon it. And the food of the Black Forest, the dark bread, the cured meats, the extraordinary cakes and pastries, the fresh mountain trout, is specific to this landscape and this climate in a way that makes eating here feel like a genuine encounter with the culture of a place. The Black Forest has inspired legends and fairy tales for centuries, and walking its darker paths in the early morning, when the mist lies in the valleys, and the light through the spruce canopy is reduced to thin shafts of pale gold, it is easy to understand why. There is something ancient and slightly unknowable about a forest this dense, this dark, this continuous, something that stirs something very old and very instinctive in the human imagination. From Germany, let's travel to one of the most extraordinary forests in the southern hemisphere, the Valdivian temperate Rhine forest of Chile and Argentina. The Valdivian temperate Rhine forest is one of the rarest forest ecosystems on Earth, found only in a narrow strip of the Andes and coastal range in southern Chile, and a small area of adjacent Argentina. It is one of only 5 temperate Rhine forest regions in the world, and it contains an extraordinary collection of plant species found nowhere else, ancient Allers trees, that are among the oldest living organisms on Earth, some of them over 3,000 years old, their trunks rising to extraordinary heights in a forest that has been developing without interruption for millions of years. The Allers is the redwood of South America, a giant conifer that grows with extraordinary slowness over thousands of years, reaching heights of over 40 meters, and girths of several meters at its base. Standing beside an Allers that is 3,000 years old, that was already ancient, when Rome was building its empire, and placing your hand on the rough, reddish bark, feeling the scale of the time that this tree represents, is one of the most humbling experiences available in any forest in the world. The Valdivian forest is extraordinarily beautiful, a landscape of ferns and mosses and ancient trees draped in hanging lichens, of cold clear rivers running between banks of extraordinary botanical richness, of volcanoes visible above the canopy in the distance, and the wildlife, pumas moving through the undergrowth, condors circling above the tree line. The extraordinary huemul deer found only in this region gives the forest a wildness and an aliveness that is specific to these latitudes and these ecosystems. Now let's travel to a forest that most people have seen in photographs but that almost no one fully appreciates until they stand inside it. The Arashiyama Bamboo Grove in Kyoto, Japan. Arashiyama is not a forest in the traditional sense. It is a grove of bamboo, planted and tended over centuries, that covers the hillside above the Oi River, in the western outskirts of Kyoto. But the experience of walking through it is as extraordinary as any forest in the world, perhaps more so, because it is unlike anything else. The bamboo culms, some of them 30 meters tall, are so densely planted and so perfectly vertical that they create a corridor of green and gold and shadow, that is one of the most visually extraordinary natural environments on Earth. The sound of the Arashiyama Bamboo Grove is one of the things that people remember most. When the wind moves through the grove, as it does almost constantly, the bamboo being responsive to even the lightest air movement, the sound is a deep, rhythmic creaking and rustling, that has been called one of the 100 soundscapes of Japan worth preserving. It is a sound completely unlike any other forest sound, not the rustling of leaves, not the groaning of branches, but something lower and more resonant, something that seems to come from the entire grove simultaneously, as though the bamboo is one organism rather than many. And then there is the light. The light in the Arashiyama Grove is extraordinary at any time of day, green and diffuse in the morning, golden and shaft-like at midday, deep and shadowed in the afternoon. But in the early morning, before the visitors arrive, when the mist is still on the river below and the only sounds are the wind and the bamboo, it achieves a quality of beauty that is genuinely otherworldly, a quality that has made it one of the most photographed natural environments in Japan, and that no photograph has ever quite succeeded in capturing. Let's travel now to the largest forest in the world, a forest so vast that it contains within it more biodiversity than any other ecosystem on Earth. The Amazon rainforest of South America. The Amazon rainforest covers approximately 5.5 million square kilometers, an area larger than the entire continental United States, and it contains an estimated 10% of all species on Earth, 10% of everything alive. Within its canopy live over 40,000 plant species, over 1,300 bird species, over 3,000 species of fish in its rivers, and millions of insect species, many of them still undescribed by science. It produces approximately 20% of the world's oxygen, which is why it has been called the lungs of the earth, and it holds within its biomass an extraordinary volume of carbon, accumulated over millions of years of biological growth. Standing at the edge of the Amazon and looking into that wall of green, that extends for miles in every direction, that rises in layers from the dark forest floor to the sunlit canopy far above, you feel something that is difficult to articulate but immediately recognizable. You feel small, and in that feeling of smallness, in that direct, physical encounter with something so much larger and older and more complex than anything human beings have created, there is something deeply comforting. A reminder that the world is not dependent on us, that it was here before us, in extraordinary abundance and complexity, and that our relationship to it matters, in the most direct and immediate way. And finally, let's travel to a forest that is unlike any other on Earth, a forest that seems to belong to a different planet entirely. The Dragon Blood Tree Forest of Socotra Island, Yemen. Socotra Island sits in the Arabian Sea off the coast of Yemen, and it has been isolated from the mainland for so long that approximately a third of its plant life is found nowhere else on Earth. The most extraordinary of these plants is the dragon blood tree, a tree of such extraordinary and alien appearance that it stops every person who sees it for the first time completely. The tree has an umbrella-shaped canopy, perfectly flat on top, as though it has been trimmed by a giant hand, supported by a trunk that branches repeatedly from a single base, in a way that creates a canopy of extraordinary density and regularity. The bark is smooth and pale, the leaves are thick and waxy, and when the bark is cut, it bleeds a deep, vivid red sap, the dragon's blood that gives the tree its name, that has been used for centuries in medicine and dye and varnish. A forest of dragon blood trees, and there are ancient forests of them on the plateau of Socotra, is one of the most extraordinary visual experiences available in the natural world. The trees are so unusual in their form, so unlike anything in the familiar botanical world, that walking among them feels like walking on another planet. The sky above them is the blue of the Arabian Sea, the rock beneath them is ancient and pale, and the silence, broken only by the wind, is the silence of one of the most remote and most extraordinary places on Earth. These forests, the Hoh Rhine Forest, the Dane Tree, the Black Forest, the Valdivian Temperate Rhine Forest, the Arashiyama Bamboo Grove, the Amazon, and the Dragon Blood Tree Forest of Socotra, are 7 of the most beautiful and most extraordinary forests in the world. Each one is completely different. Each one offers an experience of the natural world that is available nowhere else. And each one carries within it something that is increasingly rare in modern life, the particular quality of silence and presence and aliveness that only a great forest can provide. Go into the trees. Whatever forest is available to you, whatever canopy you can find to stand beneath, go into it, and let it do what forests have always done for human beings. Let it quiet you. Let it slow you down. Let it remind you that the world is older, and larger and more extraordinary than anything you can see from a road or a screen. That is what forests are for, and they have been doing it, patiently and perfectly, for longer than we can imagine.